Can you fathom a society functioning smoothly without the rule of law? Now consider the challenges when corruption entangles the very roots of this law enforcement. It's a reality, a complex web that we find ourselves navigating in the world today. And Pakistan, our focus for today, is no exception. In the grand scheme of societal structures, law enforcement plays a crucial role. It not only maintains order and security, but also ensures justice by upholding the principles of fairness and equality. But what happens when the guardians of law themselves get ensnared in the traps of corruption? It's like a crack in the foundation that jeopardizes the stability of the entire structure. Today we journey through the evolution of corruption and law enforcement in Pakistan, a narrative that holds both trials and triumphs. Corruption did not appear overnight. Its roots trace back to the early years post-independence. During this time, the young nation was grappling with establishing a robust legal framework and a fair system of law enforcement. This presented a fertile ground for the seeds of corruption to be sown, as systems were still developing and checks and balances were not firmly in place. With the passage of time, the nation witnessed a shift in power dynamics. The balance of power started to lean heavily towards those who held political and financial influence. This, in turn, led to the misuse of power within law enforcement agencies, where corruption began to thrive. Officers were persuaded to turn a blind eye to crimes committed by the powerful, while the weak and the vulnerable found themselves at the mercy of a system that did not protect them. The 70s and 80s saw a further surge in corruption, as political instability and economic crises gripped the nation. Law enforcement agencies were often used as tools by those in power to suppress dissent and maintain control. This only served to deepen the roots of corruption within these agencies. As the years rolled on, corruption began to intertwine itself more deeply within the fabric of law enforcement. The 90s and early 2000s were marked by a series of high-profile corruption scandals involving senior law enforcement officials. These scandals served to further erode public trust in law enforcement and highlighted the urgent need for reform. But to truly understand the depth and scope of corruption within law enforcement, we must look beyond the headlines. We must consider the countless, everyday instances of corruption that go unreported. The bribes taken, the cases manipulated, the justice denied. As the years rolled on, corruption began to intertwine itself more deeply within the fabric of law enforcement. Corruption, like a stone thrown into a pond, creates ripples that touch every shore. This metaphor paints a vivid picture of the pervasive impact of corruption on society, with a particular emphasis on how it corrodes the very fabric of law enforcement. Corruption in law enforcement is akin to a parasite that feeds off its host, gradually weakening it from within. It corrodes the integrity of an institution that is supposed to protect and serve, turning it into a tool for personal gain and power. Officers who should be upholders of justice become perpetrators of injustice, using their power and influence to further their own interests rather than those of the public. This malfeasance not only undermines the effectiveness of law enforcement, but it also erodes public trust in these institutions. When the guardians of law and order are seen as corrupt, it fosters a sense of disillusionment and cynicism among the public. This can lead to a lack of cooperation with law enforcement, hindering investigations and the enforcement of laws. Moreover, corruption within law enforcement can lead to a cycle of crime. With justice for sale to the highest bidder, criminals can go unpunished, further encouraging law-breaking. This creates a society where the rule of law is replaced by the rule of power and money, where justice is not blind, but sees only the color of currency. Corruption also has a demoralizing effect on honest officers. When integrity is not rewarded but instead punished or overlooked, it can discourage honest individuals from pursuing careers in law enforcement, further weakening these institutions. Finally, corruption in law enforcement can lead to social unrest and instability. When the public loses faith in the institutions meant to protect them, it can lead to protests, riots, and in extreme cases, even revolution. Corruption, thus, not only disrupts law enforcement, but also erodes the public's trust in it. It's a societal ill that we must all strive to eradicate for the health of our communities, our institutions, and our very democracy. The fight against corruption has been a long and arduous one, marked by both setbacks and victories. Like an unwelcome guest, corruption has found a home in many sectors, not sparing even law enforcement. But the battle against this menace has seen the rise of significant reforms, legislation, and initiatives in Pakistan. These have been the weapons of choice in this war, the tools to restore integrity and trust. One key reform has been the establishment of independent anti-corruption agencies. These bodies, armed with the power to investigate, prosecute, and penalize, have been pivotal in holding the corrupt accountable. They have been the guardians in the night, the watchdogs keeping a keen eye on the activities within law enforcement. Legislation has also played a vital role. New laws have been enacted providing a legal framework to fight corruption. These laws have given teeth to the anti-corruption agencies, enabling them to bite back against the corrupt. They have increased penalties for corruption, creating a deterrent for those tempted to stray from the path of integrity. But laws and agencies alone are not enough. The fight against corruption has also seen the birth of numerous initiatives aimed at fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. These initiatives have focused on training law enforcement officers, instilling in them the values of integrity and honesty. The results of these efforts are beginning to show. There have been significant improvements in the transparency and accountability within law enforcement. Officers are now more aware of the consequences of corruption, leading to a decrease in corrupt practices. The fight against corruption has also seen victories. High-profile cases have been successfully prosecuted, sending a clear message that no one is above the law. These successes have been a beacon of hope, a sign that the fight is not in vain. While the road to eradicating corruption is long and winding, these strides indicate a move in the right direction. As we look towards the future, the question remains, what lies ahead for law enforcement in Pakistan? The path forward is not without its challenges, but it's also filled with opportunities for growth and reform. The future of law enforcement in Pakistan is intrinsically tied to the country's ongoing fight against corruption. This battle, although daunting, is not insurmountable. With the right measures in place, Pakistan can continue to make strides towards a more transparent and just law enforcement system. In the coming years, we can expect to see advancements in technology playing a significant role in shaping law enforcement. From digital evidence collection and analysis to the use of artificial intelligence in predicting crime patterns, the possibilities for innovation are endless. However, with these advancements comes the need for proper regulation to prevent misuse and uphold the rule of law. Furthermore, we must acknowledge the importance of education and training in the future of law enforcement. By investing in the professional development of law enforcement officers, we can ensure that they are well equipped to uphold the law with integrity and fairness. Another key aspect of the future of law enforcement will be strengthening the relationship between the police and the community. Building trust with the public is essential for effective law enforcement. This can be achieved through transparency, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to serve and protect. Lastly, the future will require us to continually reassess and adapt our strategies to combat corruption. This means not just punishing corrupt practices, but also fostering an environment where corruption is less likely to take root in the first place. This includes promoting a culture of ethics and integrity within law enforcement agencies, and ensuring that officers who uphold these values are recognized and rewarded. The future of law enforcement in Pakistan remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the fight against corruption must continue. It's a necessary journey towards a more just and equitable society where the rule of law is respected and upheld by all. In the end, corruption and law enforcement in Pakistan tell a story of struggle, resilience, and hope. We've walked a winding path, from the dawn of corruption, its impact on society and law enforcement, through the ongoing fight to eradicate it, and peered into the future of law enforcement in Pakistan. We've witnessed how corruption has not only undermined the rule of law, but also bred societal issues. Yet, despite these challenges, Pakistan remains resilient, determined to restore integrity and justice. From landmark court rulings to significant legal reforms, we've seen the country's unyielding efforts to combat corruption and uphold the rule of law. Looking ahead, the future of law enforcement in Pakistan is promising, with continuous reforms and an unwavering commitment to transparency and accountability. Yet the journey is far from over. As we move forward, it is crucial to remember that the fight against corruption is not just a responsibility of law enforcement, but of every citizen. After all, a society gets the kind of law enforcement it insists on.